Well, good afternoon, everyone. Kristen, I don't know, you may not remember me, but I was at one of your first labs down on campus and was very inspiring. And I did some sewing and painting and all kinds of stuff I hadn't done in years. So kind of put a fire in me for creating Makerspace at my library. But I'm hoping just to give you some realistic options for developing a makerspace in your own library today. So first of all, making space in your vision. So thinking about makerspace, how do we define it? And we know the definition from the book Makerspace. It's a general term for a place where people get together to make things. So that's what our makerspace is, a space where people make things. What do we do in our makerspace? It's just that. We make things, and it allows learning to unfold, and that's such an important component to it. Why is it important for libraries to embrace? Well, we are community places, and that's at the core of Makerspace. That is what it is, community. And it's not home, it's not school, we're the third place, libraries. That's how we like to think of it. A lot of times at home and school, there are a lack of opportunities for that creative play. And it also diversifies our offerings. So how do you fit it into your mission? Well, to fit it into ours, it's easy because we educate, enrich, entertain, encourage reading and lifelong learning. So it fits in beautifully into our mission. This is one, a table that we had, I believe this was on SVSU's campus when we first started doing Makerspace in the public libraries of Saginaw. And we started with a mini maker fair at the Buttman Fish branch, and that's carried on to Makerspace Mondays there. At my branch I'm at now, Wickes, we do Design Time Tuesdays. Once a month it's something very formal, and the other weeks it's just informal building, and kids just kind of can do whatever they want from our cart. And I want to get to the Zoll Makerspace rooms because I just love what they did. So let's move into, this is the Makerspace at Buttman Fish. We didn't have the space to have something permanent. So we bought this cart, we invested in these bins, labeled them, and the kids just love to decide what they're going to do from week to week. Some weeks it's very structured and organized and crafty, but a lot of times this is one of their go-to things, these magnetiles. They just love building with those. What does your makerspace look like? It can be high-tech, it can be low-tech, it can be in a room or on a cart, big or small, loud or quiet. So don't let the idea intimidate you. That's what I learned from Kristen a few years back. And in fact, she said that one of the most popular things was the box full of just basically leftover junky kind of stuff. The kids love to just create all kinds of interesting things. So decide what ages it's going to be for, and some places are called Tinkerspace, Hackerspace, Fab Lab. This is the Chicago Public Library Makerspace, very impressive. Detroit Public Library Hype Makerspace, very technical. And I love the Lego wall at this school. I think we may try to do that here. So this is the Zoll Library, and they've just divided, they've taken two closets and taken the doors off, and they have a design space and a build space. And this is open all the time because the doors are off, and the kids can go in there. The little kids obviously need the supervision, but oftentimes it's just overseen by a staff member. Some pictures of that. So what's holding you back from a makerspace? Is it lack of vision, expertise, time, all of these different things that could possibly be holding you back? And we want to talk about what you can do to overcome that. First of all, there's some great resources out there. We have a resource list at the end of this presentation. You can go to maker fairs at libraries, schools, bookstores. MLA has a lot of interesting things. I love Pinterest, of course, for that kind of thing. But look at what the libraries are doing. And of course, U of M has excellent resources. And then transforming your space into makerspace. This is the second part of this. Things you should think about before you start. Do you want it to be a permanent space? Does it need to be enclosed on a cart? Those kinds of things. That just talks about what Zoll did with their storage closets. They definitely thought out of the box. Who is your target audience? I know at one of our branches at Buttman Fish, we have a page that usually goes back with the kids, and then the staff member goes in and out of the room. And it is mostly elementary and tweens at that location. Zoll does have elementary school age or the preschoolers that will come with their parents, but they have all ages there as well. And now you have to decide if you're going to do STEM or STEAM, obviously adding that arts component, and that's what worked for Zoll. So they have a STEAM. And then look at your staff. What kinds of gifts do they have? What kind of time can they give it? How will you supervise it? All of these kinds of questions are important to ask. And then look at what's successful in your library. What programs are people drawn to? And that shows you naturally what they're interested in. And so you probably already have a lot of supplies on hand that you're not thinking of. These would be great in Makerspace, but honestly, just collect the toilet roll from the bathroom, and they love making things out of that, and pipe cleaners. And you want to do some guided making and definitely leave some room for unguided making. Zoll does have a sewing machine in one of their rooms. This is just some more pictures. Ben warned me that I only have 15 minutes, so I'm just flying through some of this stuff. And these are the labels that Beth created, and I just really like the concept. Just what can I make with blank? And they have their spaces. One room is for making or designing, and one room is for building. So they've color-coded and labeled. And then if you tie your programs in with your Makerspace, the great thing about that is you can use all of the leftover stuff and put it into your Makerspace afterwards. Zoll does the second Wednesdays program. So that's the one that is very structured. Those are some examples of some things that they've done. This was the Santa STEM workshop. This is a yummy one. I'm sure the kids loved that one. Watercolor. Promoting your Makerspace. This gives you some ideas for how to promote it. This was a bulletin board at Zoll, which I loved. I thought that was super clever. And then at the open house, they just would put the tables up and say, can you make a frame? Can you make a fashion design? And just really inviting people to come over and do their own thing. And that was very effective. And other things that they were able to create. Look at that fancy marble run. The duct tape wallet. And this shows how one of their rooms is the design space and one is for building. So what about paying for Makerspace? Well, if you have a friends group, that's how our branch paid for it at Buttman Fish, and then also at Zoll, the initial investment of it. Grants for just partnering with the local organizations. We actually had our patrons donate a lot of Legos for our monthly Lego club. We've had thousands of bricks donated, and we just do a basic wash of them all and then put them out. So it's important to start with what you have. Don't be intimidated and think, oh, this is just junky stuff. The kids are so creative and they just love playing around with this stuff, and we always want to reuse and repurpose. For Zoll, the initial costs was for the decorating and the painting of their closets to reinvent them. And they were able to take some of that money from the building maintenance budget and then some from supplies, tapping into different line items of your budget. This just talks about how to keep it supplied. Gotta love those clearance corners. Great stuff, great finds. And expanding your makerspace. Don't be afraid to start small. That's what Kristen taught me, and it's super important. Just start with what you have. Then you assess it. Are they using it? What do you want to change? Etc., etc. How do you keep the space fresh? And sometimes bringing in technology. Once a month, maybe try to do something more technical for the kids. I know at Buttman Fish, they love just the crafty kind of things. So we do the technical things sometimes, but not even once a month, because they prefer the crafty things. Those were pictures at the Zoll branch, and I know they do more technical work there. The kids really like that. Oh yes, tapping into your patrons, the patrons that knit and sew and do all kinds of things. And we at our mini maker fair, we pulled in some of our patrons, and they loved helping us. One did quilting, and she cut out squares of construction paper and had the kids make like a little quilt on paper and talked about it. So tapping into colleges is a great idea. The second Wednesday at Zoll, I know they're hoping to have patrons, experts come in and work with them on every Wednesday eventually. And then this is also Beth's idea to have an expert in residence available at certain times. And obviously with libraries sometimes running shorter on staff these days, that's super important. So I've given you Beth's information because she actually is the one that put the PowerPoint together. She was not available to present today, but here is the resource list. And I think I stayed in my window, so. Are there any questions?
Great job, Kristine. Yeah, Kristine's slides are all up on the website for the conference that we sent you. There are 54 slides, so you have plenty to look at there and plenty to digest. And Beth's information was up there as well. So yeah, we really love the small spaces and the getting started at the with whatever you have. So that was a really great thing to focus on there. What are some examples of some of the experts and residents that you've had? Are you still there, Kristine?
Okay, yes, I'm here. We had, I'm working at a different branch now, but at my other branch, we had a bread maker come in and teach the kids about making bread, and they made twisty pretzel things, and they loved that. We started a knitting club because we found out in asking about what people like to do. A patron come in and start teaching knitting, so things like that.
Great. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if anybody has any questions for Justin or Lavon, then we can have questions for them as well. We have about 4 minutes until we'll take a break. So are there any other questions, or did Justin or Levon have questions for Kristine as well. Things that you noticed from her presentation.
So I realized something while you're thinking of questions, which is when Rhonda Butler was the head of youth services in Saginaw, she said, you're getting in my car after this workshop and you're going over to the Zoll branch to look at things. And I remember coming back and then having lunch with Justin and saying, I saw these really great bins that say, like, what can you make with? And I just checked with Ben, who also works in the Shapiro lab, and those signs showed up at over at U of M as well. So I think one of the great pleasures, if you are interested in the maker movement, is to get to do what we've done, which is get in the car, drive, visit some of these places, and see what's working that you haven't thought of that you can add to your toolkit. I think we can learn so much, and we know that when we go and look at other people's collections, but it's so fun to get to see Nancy's Maker Station, or the labels at Zoll, or Levon's beautiful space. And so I would encourage you to think about that as you plan your summer trips. And since I don't see any further questions, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break to 4:15 so everybody can get a snack, go to the bathroom, and you do not want to miss the second half. We have some amazing presenters, including someone who is enrolled in the YX sort of re-envisioning youth services program at the University of Maryland. We have Jimmy McLaren's going to talk about the amazing things that happen at a Class 1 library in Northern Michigan. So there's really exciting stuff to come. So we'll see you at 4:15.